Hi there everyone and welcome back to the videos where I'm going to be talking through some of the subgenres of horror. Now the reason that I'm talking through these genres is because it's really important to have a detailed understanding of the genres that you're actually writing for. It can help you have a better analysis of the film or the media that you're working on so you know how to involve your sound. You'll be able to easily see where the plot is coming from and you'll know how much development you need to put into your music. Now the subgenre of thriller within horror tends to start by focusing on a place of safety. It'll be an innocent area, almost like a suburban town, that will turn into a place of fear when this development occurs. That unexpected change will then cause the terror that then sets the film going. Of course, within that subgenre, there's lots of ways to approach the thriller subgenre, but to be honest with you, a lot of the time there isn't a lot of backstory. It's all about the present terror that's occurring within the film that you're watching and how they're going to deal with it or how they're going to overcome it. A lot of the character development tends to transpire within the film itself. The characters' personalities and emotions will change in the film as that terror is present. There's this lurking doom that sort of surrounds the development of the characters, whether they're good or bad, and it builds on this mystery and this suspense within the film. The storyline tends to be unpredictable. You're not really sure where it's going to go unless it follows that parody style storyline. In the parody style, I suppose they're more making fun of the classic storylines, so you can kind of anticipate what's going to happen. But obviously in classic thrillers, you're not supposed to be able to figure out what's going to happen next. There's always this revealing of the real evil, and it tends to be from an unexpected source, like a friend or someone that you trusted as you walk through the film. Thriller films are more focused on the excitement that comes from that suspense and tension that we're building. And I mean, that feeling of that uncomfortable fear is pretty much inevitable. But to put all of this in perspective, let's have a think about some notable mentions that are included in the thriller subgenre that you might recognise. Now, as I said before, there's always some sort of cross with a lot of subgenres within horror. So some of these you might think, they might be crossing more on another one, but I've tried to kind of keep it to the classic thrillers and how it's evolved over time. Older films that we could mention would be things like The Shining, Halloween, Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but then we might move on to the more modern series like Saw, and more recently things like Get Out, A Quiet Place, Don't Breathe, and then the film that has literally just come out, I think, which is 2019, Us. I'm really looking forward to seeing that because it kind of still, I think, has the feel of Get Out because it's the creators of Get Out. And I love that film, so I'm interested to see what they do with this one. The trailers look fantastic as well. Now, the more modern thrillers tend to touch more on the psychological terror. Now, I'm not sure if that's to do with the fact that the old thriller storylines have maybe become a bit more of a parody. People might not take it as seriously as they used to, and they might not be scared as much. But today, it's more about freaking out the mind rather than that classic storyline of maybe there's a man trying to kill everyone. I think today we might have to be a little bit more clever with the way that we portray things, and that could be because of, I don't know, maybe desensitization to things like that, or it could just be because people have got bored of that kind of storyline because it's been overdone. Now, the main difference between thriller and some of the other genres we're talking about in terms of the soundtrack is that thriller tends to have a bit more of melodic interest. You obviously don't have to have that, but having that melodic hook can sometimes draw interest to little things within the film. For example, a reoccurring character or feeling. Now, I'm going to be going over in detail how to create a good melody in a soundtrack in the next video. But let's have a look at one film that is probably the most obvious film to talk about for a melodic hook. It's Halloween, and it's probably got one of the most iconic soundtracks of this genre. Yes, it does kind of cross over with the slasher subgenre of horror, but it's still a kind of classic thriller melodic hook that I can talk about. It's this stabbing hook that burns into your mind, but weirdly, I don't think it's there to frighten you. I think it's more about creating that uncomfortable, ambiguous feeling that heightens that fear that you've got in the film already, that makes you think that you're not safe in your own home. Even though you're just watching a film, you still feel like there's somebody standing behind you or there's somebody about to break into your house. Hitting that audience with that kind of creepy vibe can just draw them in immediately. And having that hook in Halloween just brings you back to that feeling every time they play it. As it's associated with one character, you are then more scared by that one character because there's something iconic attached to them. Every time we come back to it, we're sat there going, oh shit, something's about to happen. It helps you follow along with that emotional storyline that's going on. The main reason that I'm rambling on about Halloween is because you can probably tell that it's my main inspiration for this track. You can hear that similarity between their sort of high-end stabbing piano and at the beginning of my track, that more ambient style, but it's still quite stabby within the piano sounding instruments. I kind of wanted to draw people back to that classic Thriller style while also mixing in my own more, I guess, modern electronic sounds. Another reason was that I kind of wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to add in those more instrumental sounds because I'd gone so heavy on the sound design in the other tracks. It needed to be more distinct from the other two, so I thought that going with more the traditional route of instruments would be the way to go. I wanted to approach this track with having the large sounds as the centre with the melodic interest. Starting off with that Halloween-inspired kind of melodic hook playing over the top, and then moving into that larger sound melodic with the kind of almost Hans Zimmer like Brahms at the bottom. But no matter how big that sound got as I started amping it up, I still wanted that melody to persist throughout everything. I wanted to catch people with that melodic hook, kind of lull them into a sense false of security, and then hit them with the sound. I wanted them to think, what the hell is going to happen next? An element of that classic Thriller storyline that I talked about earlier. Another main feature of this track that is a little bit new for me is the electronic drum beat style bit at the end of the track. I was kind of going for that mimicking of the chase scene, but with that more modern approach to it. I just found it really interesting to experiment with that kind of style of music, because I haven't really done that before. I wanted there to be a storyline within my track. I wanted to start with that, I guess, more ambient start with that melodic hook to lull you into this false sense of security. I then wanted to hit you with sound, which kind of raises the heart rate, you're feeling scared, the tension is there. And then I wanted to end with this kind of more epic ending that had the drum beat, it had the chase feeling to it, and it had the movement. Have a think about if you could implement that kind of storyline to your tracks, because especially in production library music, you need to have some sort of structure to it. Otherwise, people are just going to switch off. You need to have that interest there, so they're not just going to skip. I really hope that's helped put the Thriller subgenre into perspective for you guys, and I hope you have a better understanding of where this track was coming from. If you want to learn a little bit about other subgenres of horror, I've covered action and I've covered psychological haunting, and they're on my channel in other videos. I've also covered some more technical details. So I've gone through how you can create dread and fear within pitch. I talk about how important live instrumentation can be to the sound of your track and how much difference it can make even if you're on a budget like me. And then finally, the second part to this little bit with the Thriller subgenre is I'm going to be talking through how to create a good melody and how to keep that movement within the melody. Alright, see you around guys. Bye!